Beast Boy, as a character, serves massively different roles at various times in Teen Titans. While he's usually just the goofy guy, being comedic relief in most of the less comedic episodes and the centerpiece for a good chunk of the most comedic episodes, he's also a central character in some of the saddest stories the show ever tells. And while I believe the series in general does a good job balancing these two sides of the character, no episode does this better than Season 3, Episode 9, The Beast Within. In this video, we're going to go through the episode, taking a closer look at how it transforms Beast Boy from series-long punching bag to a case study on man's inner beast.
Freakouts lately? I just got sick of being pushed around.
The episode starts off with a fight against Adonis in an animal testing facility. The show takes extra time to start off the episode with Beast Boy once again being the punching bag of the team, with the first shot of the episode being him getting thrown around before making a joke about it. The episode continues this trend by having Beast Boy make a grammatical error when talking to Adonis, one that's quickly spotted by Raven, who proceeds to belittle him for it in the middle of the fight. This pattern of Raven talking down to BB is important for the rest of the episode, but first we get a full team showdown, one the series loves to do cold opens with. The episode constantly uses shots of the animals in the lab going wild throughout the scuffle, clearly drawing parallels between them and the Titans fighting Adonis. At the beginning of the confrontation, Adonis clearly demolishes all 5 Titans, with Beast Boy last and worst. But then, after Adonis challenges Beast Boy to fight like a man, the fight immediately switches, with Beast Boy's thrashing being preceded by this line:
I'm not a man. I'm an animal!
It's important to note that this newly aggressive Beast Boy comes before any of the chemicals that inflict him later in the episode. This Beast Boy comes from entirely within the character himself. BB continues to demolish Adonis while the other Titans watch, switching continuously between various apex predators and tearing into him. He ignores the plea from Robin and Star to watch out for the chemicals, seemingly intentionally diving recklessly into them, wanting to damage Adonis more than trying to protect himself. Beast Boy quickly finishes Adonis after this point, and once he transforms back into his humanoid form, it's clear that he's no longer his goofy self. As shown through his animation and voice direction, this Beast Boy is clearly angrier, quickly snapping back at Raven for a jab that's pretty tame compared to what she usually throws at him. The final shot of this cold open is perhaps my favorite of the whole thing though, as the dogs that have been barking at the Titans the entire fight quickly whimper at Beast Boy's presence, clearly showing that he's no longer at the bottom of the pack. After the intro, we get a look at BB waking up on his floor. The episode initially shows a much happier and cheerful Beast Boy than what we last saw, and much closer to his normal self. It seems like the character we saw yesterday was gone, but as Beast Boy runs out of his room to chase after the smell of food, the camera pans to reveal claw marks across his bed. The opening shot is done really well to set up the mysterious nature of what's going to happen when Beast Boy falls asleep again that plays out throughout the next segment of the episode. Anyway, as Beast Boy bolts out of his room, it turns out the smell that he was chasing was just Robin cooking a comically oversized breakfast, complete with 5 eggs and a ham. The decision to show him abandoning his vegan ways is one that works really well for the episode and foreshadowing the discussion of Beast Boy's beastness later in the episode. The reason given for why Beast Boy was vegan was because he always related to the prey that he would sometimes turn into. But now that he's become a meat eater, it's clear that he no longer relates to the bottom of the food chain, and that he's become closer to the predator side of himself, the same predators he transformed into in the defeat of Adonis. We get some shots of Beast Boy working out, quickly finding his humanoid form insufficient and then switching to a beast. This trend of Beast Boy doing things as an animal that he would usually do in his normal form continues throughout this episode as he becomes less and less attached to the part of him that's man. We get a pair of progressively concerning scenes with Star and Cyborg to further illustrate this, as he's uncharacteristically rude and misogynistic to Star when she asks him to switch the channel, and rages hard enough at his and Cyborg's games to actually attack Cyborg. This build-up in aggression in Beast Boy through his interactions with the other 3 Titans leads him to his last teammate, Raven, who he bumps into while she's reading. Raven is immediately strangely kind to Beast Boy, which is met by immediate retaliation, usually seen in the reverse in interactions between the two. Raven then rescinds her apology, leading to a BB escalation never quite seen in the show before. Beast Boy's threats throughout this argument become less and less vague, as Raven and him realize that the height difference between them isn't exactly conducive to great intimidation, causing Raven to call it out and Beast Boy to respond by giving into his animalistic urges and transforming, preparing to attack his friend. He's pulled out of the state by Robin, who he then proceeds to confront similarly to how he did Raven. This scene does a really good job showing the feeling of the entire team turning against Beast Boy, leading to that cornered animal feeling, as the show frames shots to feature 4 Titans on one side and Beast Boy on the other. This feeling continues over into the next scene as he thrashes his room, becoming angrier and angrier until eventually his human form breaks, giving way to a form that doesn't really resemble any living creature. Raven leaves her room to investigate these occurrences, only to find the creature from before, ending the first half of this episode with a gasp. We pick back up with the 3 Titans not involved, chasing after the screams of Raven, only to find a room even more thrashed than when we last saw it. Some of the shots as the Titans go out to look for their missing teammates are obscenely beautiful. The color palette of the nighttime jump city, in conjunction with the soundtrack, creates an almost film noir-esque suspenseful feeling as the team closes in on Beast Boy. This feeling continues into the sewers as the show begins to use its shots more like a horror movie would, carefully showing the beast getting closer and closer to the Titans, while the soundtrack continues to drone throughout the entire sequence. The usually dialogue-heavy series takes a step back for this scene too, with the focus being on the music and atmosphere, both of which climaxing at the reveal of Beast Boy as the creature from before, with Raven hanging from his mouth. We get a quick piece of foreshadowing as BB carefully lays Raven down, before getting into a really well done but short fight scene between him and the Titans. Some really well choreographed beatdowns here, and while obviously the show doesn't want to show Beast Boy thrashing Star in the same way as her male counterparts, it does let him rough her up a little bit, which is a nice touch to show that he's gone truly feral. The fight's over almost as soon as it started, and while the reveal that Beast Boy was the Beast all along is a bit much given the fact that the audience already knows, and that the Titans probably should have been able to figure it out by the fact that he was green, it still does a good job wrapping up the scene in the sewer, and the confused Beast Boy being ostracized by his teammates establishes the tone that will be carried over into the next part of the episode. Back at the tower, the show once again places 4 Titans on one side of the room with Beast Boy on the other, vehemently denying that he ever hurt Raven and getting angrier and angrier. And then, as Robin approaches him for an interrogation, we get to the part of the episode that many people dislike. And yeah, I partially get it. Watching Robin, somebody who has attacked his fellow teammates for one reason or another multiple times, yell at Beast Boy and threaten to put him in jail feels unfair. It's hard to imagine him doing the same if Starfire or Raven were to suddenly go rogue under chemical interference. But at the same time, I don't really think this is the show glorifying Robin's behavior. While I get that this is largely a Beast Boy episode and that it's hard to see it as a character statement on anybody else, this scene, at least to me, shows Robin's struggle in being both a good hero and a good friend. It's easy to see why it might be hard for Robin, a protege of Batman, to be especially sympathetic to somebody who he has every reason to believe just beat up Raven to the point of knocking her into some kind of coma, one that Robin doesn't fully know the consequences of yet. The camera during this scene slowly gets closer and closer on Beast Boy as the show once again utilizes this caged animal feeling to further show Beast Boy becoming less and less man and more beast. Him telling Robin to get away from him feels more like a warning instead of a threat, as he once again succumbs to the tidal beast within. The following scuffle does a good chunk of really interesting things with the setting, as very few fights in the series take place in such a tiny environment. The inevitability of Beast Boy getting to Raven builds with the soundtrack, as he easily takes care of all 3 Titans. The feeling of the situation being completely out of control comes along with this, as this Robin line,
Sleep tight.
a pretty classic Robin one-liner, just doesn't work. Almost every other example in the show, when Robin says something like this, the fight immediately ends, but this time it just flips it on its head, with Robin being easily knocked out. The ending of this one is then further foreshadowed, as despite having ample time to harm Raven, Beast Boy simply investigates her well-being, giving Star enough time to blast him off of her, beginning the final chase scene. During the chase, the show intentionally makes it easy to forget that the Beast is indeed Beast Boy, making it seem as if Robin and Cyborg are just chasing a random villain of the week. This dehumanization continues with Beast Boy as the Titans, and Robin in particular, begin to treat him less and less like their friend and more like a wild animal. This villainization of the character comes to a peak as the show transitions back to the tower to show a waking up Raven who delivers the biggest twist of the episode, that Beast Boy never actually hurt her. This scene is probably the weakest of the episode, as it does somewhat downplay the final reveal during the last fight, being Adonis having also transformed into the man-beast. And while yes, I do realize that Adonis also being the beast does somewhat downplay the importance of this being about Beast Boy, as it turns out this transformation could have happened to any character who got exposed to the chemicals. And yes, it does somewhat call into question the DNA spiel that Cyborg gave for dramatic effect earlier in the episode, but also the fight between the beasts is one of the best in the series. It really does a good job in making it feel like two beasts fighting it out rather than two people, and even if the fight does occasionally get a bit too comic booky, the choreography is still top notch. The characters dropping through floors and getting slung across rooms is all really fluid, and the ending is perfectly climatic. While perhaps the final scene may have benefited from including a Robin apology, there's no complaining about what we got, which is a rare full conversation between Beast Boy and Raven. I honestly like the decision to keep the plot resolution limited to only a reference or two, so that the episode can focus on the thematic finisher delivered by Raven.
Having that thing inside doesn't make you an animal. Knowing when to let it out is what makes you a man.
This episode focuses on the consequences of Beast Boy's powers in a way that I wish the series did more often. When he transforms into animals so often and resembles a human less than alien and half-demon Star and Raven, it's hard to figure out what part of him is still man. But while a bit straightforward, the ending conversation of this one fully explains that not only do Beast Boy's abilities not make him any less human, but his control over them makes him even more so. I always struggle with conclusions, so I'll just wrap this one up here. If you have any ideas for what shows I should talk about or videos I should make, tweet them at me or find me in the comments. Either way, this has been Ample Samuel, and I'll see you in a couple weeks with yet another video that feels like it probably could have just been a podcast. Thanks for watching.